or good evening. I'm Sonia, and I am going to be talking about NFTs. Like, what the heck are NFTs, right? Why should you care about them? And how do you go about making some sane decisions in the world of NFTs? As we go along the journey, just remember that this is not the only session where we're going to be talking about NFTs because sometime next month or the month after, I would also be hosting a workshop where I actually walk you through the process of creating an NFT, creating your own NFT, deploying it to a test net, deploying it to mainnet, and then obviously, also drop a few NFTs in the class. So let's go ahead and get started. I want the session to be interactive. So, if you have any questions during the session, feel free to stop. Feel free to stop me and ask questions. And also, I'll be asking you questions just to see how many people are staying awake. All right. So, I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. Awesome. So, before I go ahead, I want to give credits to two entities. First is Apollonia Thomas. She is the one who actually put together most of the material in this presentation. However, and she was also the one who was supposed to present. There was scheduling conflicts, so I want to make sure that I give credits to her. And a lot of the work, a lot of the content in the slide deck itself was actually taken from a book from Reddit, The ABCs of NFTs, and that book is actually right here. So, if you want to scan this, or if you just go and Google ABCs of NFTs, the first thing that you see, that is a PDF. It's a free book, so feel free to go and download it. Just remember one thing though, the book has been out for a while. It was published last year. And in the world of NFT, a week is like a year, so things have definitely changed. Just keep that in mind, but it's still a great resource to get started and learn about NFTs. So today, we're going to be talking about four main things. Obviously, we're going to be learning about what is an NFT, but then we will also see where can people go and buy NFTs. And finally, we'll also be able to just look at the pipeline to launching an NFT project and have a few discussions on what the future holds for NFTs. Now, let's first start with the main question, right? Let's open the room with that. What is an NFT? So, anyone in the audience wants to take a stab at it? Anyone, what's the full form? I mean, obviously, it's an abbreviation. What's the full form? What do you think of it as? Or do you have absolutely no clue what is an NFT?
I forgot. I'm not gonna even lie.
That's all right. Anyone else? Anyone? Maybe before.
Typical art in the chat.
Let's see. Hold on. Yeah,
Jane,
we
it
have
is
that
digital
going
art.
on. Digital art, yes, that's actually one of the use cases of NFT. So yes, it does represent some digital art. What else?
So the way I understand it now, and hopefully I'll have a better understanding at the end, is that it's a non-fungible token. That's the full form of it. And similar to cryptocurrency that holds a value of currency against it on a public blockchain, my understanding is that NFTs hold information about anything against it on a blockchain.
That's actually a great way to put it, Anushka. And is there anyone else who wants to take a stab at it? All right, so that's great. Let's actually go ahead and look at some textbook definitions of NFT and discuss that further. Okay. Um, so NFTs, obviously, as Anushka said, it stands for non-fungible token. And before we start talking about non-fungible tokens, we need to understand what fungible tokens are. So you all have been through a couple of classes now, right? Blockchain and cryptocurrency. So can anyone from the participant pool, or we could have multiple folks speak. Can you name a couple of different cryptocurrencies? I'm going to go back to the chat. Ethereum, that's good. ADA, yes. Bitcoin, anyone else? Bitcoin, okay, all right, that's good. So, much like the concept of cryptocurrency, which essentially is represented as a token, right? Non fungible token is also a token that lives on the blockchain. But the main difference is that, unlike cryptocurrency tokens, non fungible tokens are just one of ones. And we'll try to understand what that is. So, in simple terms, let's talk about real world scenarios, right? So, Anushka, if you had a dollar, I had a dollar, and we exchanged a dollar each, after the transaction, we would both still be left with a dollar each. Similarly, if you had a pound, I had a pound, we exchange, it's the same thing. This is what is known as a fungible token. Fungible means it retains the same value, it is the same piece, it's the same item, and when it is exchanged, you essentially are exchanging the same piece of information or the same piece of currency, but it's literally multiple copies of the same item that would have the same value. Or even in a stock market, right? Stocks are technically fungible entities. Why? Because if I have a stock for Tesla and you have a stock for Tesla and we exchange, at the end of the day, we still both have one stock each for Tesla. And my stock is not going to be more valuable or lesser valuable than yours. So that is a fungible token. However, let's think about trading cards, right? Like on the screen, we have an example of houses as well, right? So let's talk about a couple of those use cases. So since we're talking about a dollar, let's talk about a trading card. So how many of you have maybe played Pokemon Go, or have kids around you who play Pokemon Go, or even adults around you who have Pokemon cards? Or how many of you are in general just aware of Pokemon and the trading cards? All right, I see a couple of hands go up. That's great. All right, not Anushka. Okay, that's fine. So in Pokemon Go, you have different characters, right? So you have Pikachu, you have Bulbasaur, and so let's say Gerda, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Please feel free to correct me. So if Gerda had one Pikachu and I had a Bulbasaur, and let's say this trading card set was the only trading card set in the world, right? And if Gerda had a Pikachu and I had a Bulbasaur, and then we exchanged those trading cards, then Gerda will have a Bulbasaur, I'll have a Pikachu. And if we try to sell ours, there is a chance that we might both be valued at different prices. Why? Because Bulbasaur and Pikachu, they are both Pokemon, but they are not the same Pokemon. So that is the main difference between fungible and non-fungible tokens. That non-fungible tokens, you just have one token, one unique token in the world. This concept becomes a little confusing because sometimes you'll see people make 10,000 NFTs that are the same copy. And we'll get to that what is the technical term for it. But the term non-fungible token essentially stands for that one single copy of a finite set of objects in a collection. So if you have 100 Pokemon trading cards, then each one of them is going to be different. And let's take another real world example. Each one of us is a non fungible token, right? Because all of us are different, unique. We are all humans, but at the end of the day, We all have different information. We all are valued differently in the society, right? We, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, if we were to exchange households, it's going to be a different experience for everyone, right? So in real world, each one of us is a non-fungible token. And then if we just talk about assets, we have an example of properties. There could be two houses that are built the same, but they could be in two different cities, or they could be even in the same neighborhood right next to each other. However, you can never say that the two houses are the same. Why? Because they will have different addresses, they would have different parcel owners. Even if they have the same property owner, at the end of the day, each of the house will have a different title. So houses are also a great example of non-fungible tokens, because no two houses can exactly be the same. So when we say that non-fungible tokens are not interchangeable, what we mean by that is, if we exchanged, we are going to have a completely different object. It's not like exchanging a dollar bill. So if I were to exchange my house with one of you, we we wouldn't be living in the same thing. It's different. So just moving on from here, and again, feel free to stop me and ask questions. Okay. So moving on from here, we're going to talk about a few more technical terms and use cases of NFTs. So, looking at a textbook definition, for example, right? What is an NFT? And I know, Anushka, you already mentioned that you look at it as something that also stores information. So, an NFT, we could think of it as an asset record on the blockchain, right? Because it's a token, so it lives on the blockchain, and it is linked to a unique digital or even physical asset. Because an NFT will always be digital, but an NFT could be tied to a physical asset's record and still live on the chain. And the NFT provides immutable proof of ownership of this asset. So let me ask this question again, to the audience. Um, on blockchain, are the transactions immutable or mutable? And by transactions, I mean, any transactions, right? Like exchange of tokens, um, anything that's signed on the blockchain. So are the transactions mutable or immutable? I want to see how many people still remember everything that was said in previous sessions. Any takers? All right, Anushka, Anushka is an expert on these things. I'm hoping that others in the audience can also take a stab at it. But anyway, Anushka answered that in the group chat. So blockchain by nature, right? It's a trustless system, and all the transactions on the chain are immutable. What do you mean by immutable? I'm pretty sure that a lot of you have heard about how property frauds could happen, right? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm in the United States, and it's very hard here to forge things because the record keeping system is good. But I was born and raised in India, and in India, I know of cases even within my family where the property owner, and this is like in a real estate property, right? So the property owner was uh, the property owner lost his or her papers, and they, even if they hadn't lost it, there are a lot of villages, a lot of places where you will have the rich collude with the local authorities and change documentation to take control of property. That is magnified hundredfold if the property owner somehow loses their property papers. But is that how things should be recorded? Absolutely not. So immutability provides you that protection. It doesn't mean that once you own an asset, it's forever yours. The blockchain is simply a proof of record. So what it means is, once I purchase an NFT, there is a record that clearly shows me as the owner, right? And I would be represented by my wallet address on a blockchain. But then once I transfer that to some other wallet, what would happen? There would be a new transaction record that is created that definitely that shows that the new owner, the person who bought it, the purchaser, is now the new owner of the NFT, and the transaction is unquestionable, it is immutable. So I cannot go and then change it or forge a transaction to show that no, I still own the NFT, because blockchain proof of record, it's immutable. And you cannot, if I have to become the owner, I have to buy back the NFT from that person again. So that is how immutability works. So with non-fungible tokens, obviously, even they inherit these properties from the blockchain. So non-fungible tokens provide immutable proof of ownership of asset. So there are a few different use cases in which they are used, and you can think of it, if you're talking about ownership of asset, then NFTs can be used for membership access. They could also be used for accreditation, though soul-bound tokens are a better option for it. We are not going to be talking about SBTs now, but accreditation, access to membership clubs, even using it for things like software subscriptions. These are a few different use cases of the NFTs, and we'll delve into more as we go ahead. So now let's talk about some of the other features of an NFT. Well, first off, as I mentioned, it's unique, and by unique, there's literally just one of that NFT in the world. They are also ownable and traceable. Because they are on the blockchain, they are obviously traceable. And then ownership is represented by a wallet that owns it. Again, blockchain works as a solid proof of record, an immutable proof of record, so that the owner of a certain asset is there are no questions raised as to who is the owner of that asset, because that record is written down and it is immutable. Also, NFTs can still be exchanged. That's why I said, they're, when we say they're not interchangeable, which means if you and I exchange an NFT, it's not going to be the same thing that we're exchanging. However, they can still be bought and sold on NFT marketplaces, so they can be exchanged, sold on a marketplace, and also you can either buy or sell them, and you can also transfer NFTs, right? So transfer, you can think of like gifting your NFTs to somebody else, or also you can think of transfer as transferring between your, let's say you have two wallets, so transferring could just be transferring between wallet one to wallet two. Then most of the NFTs, they have metadata associated with it. In fact, all the NFTs, they have a metadata associated with it. And that metadata, as the term implies, it has certain information associated with it. So if you think about it, if your house was being represented as an NFT on the blockchain, then some of the metadata associated with it could be the address of the house, the square footage of the house, the owner of the house, right? That could be represented in the metadata. Though obviously, the best place to represent an owner would be to look at the wallet that owns it. But that being said, um, metadata can still contain a lot of information about the NFT itself. So even the construction materials of the house, that could be there in the metadata. Now, one thing to realize here is the metadata itself, and also the asset associated with the NFT, these things may or may not be immutable. So that's an interesting thing to note. And when we talk about it in further slides, I'll dive into more details. But remember that an NFT by itself is a sum of different pieces. Those pieces include an asset and metadata. And while the NFT, the token itself, lives on the blockchain, right, as a record, the information that it points to, that information could still be mutated. And we'll see what that means. And finally, NFTs are asset backed and purchasable. So when we say asset backed, it means they are representing something, right? They are holding some value, some information. They are representing some asset, be it a digital asset or be it a physical asset. And again, remember how we're using the term asset here, because non-fungible tokens typically are not used as a currency compared to Bitcoin or Ethereum or Dogecoin or ADA or XRP, where you use it as a currency. Typically, NFTs are not used as currency. So if you were to go to some event and say, hey, I want to buy something, you're not going to go and sell, like spend your NFT there, right? So NFTs are treated as assets. And purchasable, well, you are able to purchase NFTs with cryptocurrency. And which cryptocurrency can you purchase an NFT with? It depends on the blockchain on which that NFT is deployed. Again, a little more detail on this as we move ahead. So now, before we talk about value chain behind an NFT, like what's the ecosystem? What do we, how do you buy and sell an NFT? I just want to ask that whatever we have said so far, are there any questions? I see a couple of new folks joined. Hi, everyone. All right, cool. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Anushka, I'm not looking at the chat necessarily. I just switching over. So if something comes up, feel free to just call my name. All right, cool. Okay, so now moving on. All right. Um, let's just look at the ecosystem of an NFT. Generally, you will be purchasing an NFT from a marketplace, and we will talk about a few examples of marketplaces. So think of this marketplace as a place where multiple NFTs would be listed. You can go to the marketplace, you find one NFT that you like, and you can buy it. Or a lot of the times when new NFT projects are coming up, they could have their own website tied to a smart contract, and you can go to the website and purchase it. Typically, this particular process, right, where you are purchasing that NFT for the first time, that process is referred to as minting an NFT. Because unless you pay for that NFT is not created on the blockchain. So the first time a person purchases an NFT, it's known as minting an NFT, and the sales generated from that are also referred to as primary sales. Whereas the second time, and this generally then happens on the marketplaces. So once I have minted and bought an NFT, if someone else buys it from me, so if Grace, for example, buys that NFT from me, that sale is recorded as secondary sales. So remember, the process of minting is the first time an NFT record is actually created on a blockchain. So that is referred to as minting, and that is different from taking your smart contract. So NFTs are represented, uh, even they are represented by a smart contract, and this smart contract dictates how many NFTs will be there in a collection, what would be the pricing of that, whether or not you want to reserve the NFTs for a certain set of wallets. And typically, the term used for that is whitelisting wallets. So it has information like that. So when this contract is deployed to the blockchain where people want to sell NFTs, right? Once that contract is deployed, let's say the contract says, okay, we are going to sell 1,000 NFTs for a price of point for a price of 100 US dollars. And I know I'm saying US dollars, but it's just to keep things simple. And also you have USDC, which is a stable coin, so technically you can just use USDC to purchase your NFTs. So coming back to this, right? So let's say you have 1,000 NFTs, and that is what's written in your smart contract. Deploying it doesn't mean that 1,000 NFTs are created. Somebody has to go and then mint those 1,000 NFTs to create to create those NFT records on the blockchain. So that process is referred to as minting. Um, Also, remember how I told you that your media, so your metadata and the asset that the NFT is pointing to that may or may not be immutable. And where those assets and metadata is stored, that plays a big role. So there is something known as IPFS, which stands for Interplanetary File Storage. And IPFS is kind of blockchain, but for file storage. The reason why I say it is kind of is because on the blockchain, once you have information recorded on the blockchain, you cannot go and delete it. However, the way IPFS works, it's more like peer to peer sharing, which is where it creates a decentralized architecture where the files that you have uploaded will be stored. However, at the same time, if there isn't a peer, right, if there isn't a node in the network that is still storing your file or it has pinned your file, you risk losing that information. So many a times people have to still go and pay for an IPFS pinning service so their information stays on there. However, the media that you've stored on IPFS, that can never be mutated. So if you want to update the media, you end up uploading a new copy. So in that way, it is still a little similar to blockchain because you cannot change the records. However, it is not exactly the same because it's not it doesn't have a permanent place unless you're paying for a pinning service. So that's a big difference. Now, um, can you store information about an NFT within blockchain itself? Absolutely. However, remember that blockchain blocks, right? The more information you're storing in it, the more you have to pay the miners to process that information. So when you're storing information on the blockchain itself, I hope you know all of you are familiar with mining and gas fees that you typically pay a network to miners who are supporting this. Because even if it is a peer to peer network, you want to reward the people who are contributing to the network, right? And that gas fees are how you're rewarding them. So if you store information on the blockchain itself, yes, that information will still be immutable, right? And yes, it can be stored on the chain itself, but it's very expensive. So most of the times you have people storing those records on a service like IPFS. So if the records are stored on IPFS, then they are immutable. However, at the end of the day, the record in the NFT metadata, right, it's only recorded as a URL, and it's from the URL that the data is fetched, that the asset is fetched, and as such, where your metadata file itself, as well as the asset, they could very well reside off chain. So you can create NFTs where this metadata, where the asset is not on the blockchain, it's also not on IPFS, it could be on your Google Drive. It, as long as you're able to write a code to fetch the data by token ID. It could be on AWS, it could be on your server, it could be anywhere on the internet. And all what you have to do is use that particular URL with your smart contract. So when the minting happens, when marketplaces are reading that data, they are able to ping that URL. They are able to fetch that URL and fetch the information from that URL. This particular, and why would people want to keep it that way? For simple reasons. Like right now, you have the concept of dynamic NFTs. NFTs have found a good place in gaming. So let's say your game avatar is being represented as an NFT, and you go on the marketplace and you buy more upgrades for your avatar, you get new skins, etc. If you still want this information to stay with your avatar, then you want your avatar to be dynamic. Now, if that avatar is frozen in time, you won't be able to really add anything to it. So that's like one ethical use case of why people would want to, keep the NFTs, the NFT metadata and the artwork mutable. But then obviously, you also have some bad players in the ecosystem every now and then who just don't want to like freeze the metadata, who don't want to they like like everything, all businesses, sometimes you have bad players who are taking advantage of the ecosystem, and you have to be careful about them. So moving on, Your NFTs are stored in your wallet. Just like your cryptocurrency is stored in your wallet, your NFTs are also stored in your wallet. And you use, as I mentioned earlier, you have a smart contract that governs how the NFT is bought and sold. Your smart contract also has royalties set in there for NFTs. So the concept of royalties is really what has made NFTs so valuable in the world of art. And again, we'll get to that in a minute. And again, and then the last part, the transaction is obviously forever recorded on the blockchain. All right. So a lot of people would then ask, hey, if NFTs are just digital arts, can't we just right click and save the NFT? Or can't we just take a screenshot? Why do you have to own an NFT? And this is where the concept of NFTs goes beyond just an NFT representing a digital art collectible on the blockchain. You can right click and save the digital artwork itself. However, you wouldn't be able to prove yourself as an owner of that NFT. Why? Because even you can literally take that image and you can go and mint it on the blockchain again. However, when you mint it, you would be minting it under a new contract altogether. And when people are verifying NFTs, they also look at the issuer. So a lot of fraud has happened in the NFT space, but marketplaces have stepped up and put in measures in place to combat that fraud. So the one thing that you cannot duplicate is proof of ownership. So you could get access to the digital art, but you cannot prove that you are the owner. And a lot of the times people will say, okay, so do we really care? Can't I just still use it? Here's the thing. A lot of the NFTs actually act as membership passes to a group of people who own that NFTs, and they are in there to help each other out and support each other. So, how many of you have heard of the Bored Ape Yacht Club by any chance? I'm gonna go back. How many of you have heard of the Bored Ape Yacht Club? You can raise some hands. All right, Grace, Anushka, Gerda. All right. For others who haven't heard about it, definitely go and Google them up. But they were really, I would say that Bored Ape Yacht Club was the project that made NFTs mainstream because they created the buzz and cry around NFTs. So there have been a lot of collections, right, that literally took all the bored apes, all their artwork, even published the whole thing as a new collection. But that doesn't matter. Why? Because holding a bored ape gives you access to the bored ape community. It gives you access to their events. It gives you access to their networking. And there are at least 60 people who have used their IP and ownership of the bored ape to create their own businesses. And people who bought copies of bored ape are not able to do that. Why? Because they don't own the original bored ape. So when your NFTs are used in the ecosystem in this fashion, they become more than just digital art that can be bought and sold. And I know that a lot of people, there is an example that people quote about Mona Lisa versus photos of Mona Lisa. And honestly, in the digital art space, a copy is seriously the same as original, right? So, it's hard to say that no, the copy is not the same as Mona Lisa, because it's literally, it's like, digital photo, right? So if you have one digital picture clicked and you print it 10 times, those 10 copies are going to be exactly the same. Whereas Mona Lisa, even if Da Vinci was to go and repaint Mona Lisa, there would be some changes in what he created. So much like that, in the NFT space, the copy is really as good as the original. However, you have new companies coming in that have also been adding tags to the digital assets themselves, especially in the 3D file. So, a big concept in emerging in NFTs, as I said, NFTs and gaming is a thing. So, a big concept emerging in the NFT space is the asset file itself, the 3D file itself, will have a tag. And if you take that NFT from one game to the other game to another game, that tag will follow. That still that acts as a verification of ownership. And also, if in game one you purchase some game one specific upgrades, game two you have some other upgrades that you've purchased, and so on, as you move across games, this particular tracking would also be able to keep track of the assets associated with that NFT on that particular game. So there are some interesting use cases. Obviously, we are not going to cover everything in this session, but again, the main thing that I'm trying to get across here is NFT is not just digital art. Yes, when it serves as just a copy of the digital art, you can go ahead, right click, save it, and that is, you can show it off to people. However, when they say that, hey, how do you prove ownership for it? You won't be able to prove that ownership because on the blockchain it belongs to someone else. But then obviously, there are a lot of people who wouldn't care about that. But when the NFT acts as has utility associated with it, where you have to prove ownership, then right click saving it does you no good. Because again, you could have a copy of all the 10,000 bored apes with you, but you cannot do shit with it. Why? Because you won't get access to the community unless you're able to prove that your wallet is the owner and that is actually verified against the blockchain. All right, so moving on. In the past couple of years now, especially in the past year, we have seen a lot of big brands as well jump on the NFT bandwagon. And a couple of the biggest brands, Nike, Dolce and Gabbana, Tiffany launched their NFT collection recently, and they made a lot of money just off of crypto punks. So this data is a little outdated. The Tiffany collection happened quite recently. They made a lot of money from it, and then you even have Adidas. Now, brands are using, especially e-commerce brands, are using NFTs in two ways. A, they are creating some digital collectibles for the metaverse. So, for example, Nike is creating sneakers that your digital avatars can wear. But then also brands are focusing on something called phygital, and phygital is a combination of physical and digital, which means if you buy an NFT, right? Which if you buy an NFT of a sneaker, that sneaker NFT comes with a digital wearable that your avatar can use, but it will also come with a physical pair of shoes, most likely that looks like the same NFT that you've bought, that you can wear in real life. So a lot of the brands have been creating phygital experiences as well for their consumers. And besides that, you have a lot of brands going into spaces like Sandbox, Decentraland, and even there the metaverse lands. These metaverse lands are also NFTs. So moving on, again, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop and ask, because obviously it's a big domain, right? And there's a lot to learn. So please feel free to stop me and ask questions. So here's a simple workflow that shows how do you buy an NFT. Um, the first thing is, because you're buying an NFT with a cryptocurrency, you need to have cryptocurrency with you. You need to have a wallet. Now, on some of the marketplaces, this process could be simplified because they have a way in which you can just pay with your credit or debit card, and the company processing the credit or debit card payment, what they actually do is they charge your credit card, but in the back end, they are taking money from the credit card, converting it into cryptocurrency, creating a custodial wallet for you. The reason why it's called a custodial wallet is because you don't own the private keys to the wallet. The company that's creating that transaction, they own it for you. You could also just give them your wallet. If you already have a wallet, you can say that, okay, I'm using this wallet. So now you have a way in which companies will allow you to purchase with credit cards, but in the back end, what they're still doing is they're taking your fiat currency, like your dollars or rand. They're taking the fiat currency, converting it into cryptocurrency, and then using that cryptocurrency to purchase the NFT. So at the end of the day, you need cryptocurrency, right, to purchase the NFT. Now you can go and first purchase the cryptocurrency, or you can also mine the cryptocurrency, but you need cryptocurrency to purchase an NFT. And by nature, to hold cryptocurrency, you need a wallet. And similarly, to purchase an NFT, you then need the wallet and you can use the same wallet. So then once you have cryptocurrency, in order to make a purchase, the NFT would be listed at a certain price. You pay that price and you're able to buy that NFT. But before you buy the NFT, make sure you do your own research. So you will see a slang being used quite often, which is DYOR, that stands for do your own research. And that is extremely, extremely important. And what should you be researching? You need to research things like, can you trust the founders? Do you believe in what the project is supporting? Do you think that the project has a sane plan for it to succeed? These are the things that you will look at if you are purchasing an NFT for utility. However, if you're purchasing an NFT only to get access to the art, then you don't have to think about all of these things. The only thing that you need to look at is whether you like the art. But if you're purchasing it for a utility, so for example, if the NFT says that, hey, if you buy this NFT, you will get a gold coin, right? Now you have to really go and evaluate that, hey, is this feasible? They are promising me something. Is that something? Would I really get that something? Or if someone says that, okay, holding this NFT gives you membership access to a club, you want to go and see, does that club really exist? I mean, not really go to the club and see, but figure that out, that hey, does that exist, and can you actually benefit from it? Because if the club is in the US, you're in South Africa, is there really a benefit for you purchasing that NFT that gives you access to the club? In that case, maybe the only reason why you would buy it is because you think that, hey, okay, I can purchase this NFT and then later on I can flip it. By flipping, what you mean is selling it for a profit. So finally, once you've done your own research, you can go purchase the NFT on the marketplace or a project site. And finally, this last step, which talks about storing your NFT on a cold wallet, just like with cryptocurrency, where to keep your cryptocurrency safe, instead of saving it in a software wallet, you should transfer it to your hardware wallet, or we also refer to it as cold storage. Your most valuable NFTs, that is what you should be doing with them as well. Why? Because they have a value associated with it. Remember, they are assets, right? So you want to make sure you take appropriate care of your assets. Do people know here what hardware and software wallets are?
I think I need a refresher on that, please.
All right, I can do that. And I'm sorry, now I just came back to the screen and I see a few. Oh yeah, you're right, Anushka. They have the contract address there. So the creator will always require a smart contract on the block. That is right. You're right, Gerda. The creator will always require a smart contract on the chain, and there are costs associated with deploying a smart contract. But you could actually deploy it on different chains in order to save the cost of deployment. All right. So here, what I'm going to do is, I believe I am. I'm just going to stop sharing and share my screen again. So, all right. So let's look at this, right? Generally, your software wallets are either stored in your browser extension, right? Like you see a MetaMask wallet over here. You have a lot of different wallets, right? And you can imagine that your I have a MetaMask wallet that allows me to enter my well, right now it did not necessarily ask me for a password, but depending on the inactivity time, it will once in a while lock itself up and allow ask me to enter a password. And this is just a software. I mean, I have MetaMask on my phone as well, but at the end of the day, it's literally just a software wallet. And if you can think about it, a hacker can get access to my computer. A hacker can actually can install like a keylogger in my computer. And when I open up the MetaMask wallet, they could track my password that I'm using to access the wallet, right? And what they could do is just get access to that wallet, drain all the things that, all the cryptocurrency that I have in the wallet, and drain all the NFTs I have in the wallet, and essentially, just rob me of everything that I have in that wallet, right? So that is a software wallet. And software wallets can be compromised, even though they have been increasing security. Software wallets can still be compromised. So the moment you have a sizable portfolio of cryptocurrency, what you need to do is get a hardware wallet. And a hardware wallet would look something like this. So this is a ledger, and the way a ledger works, I mean, this is not on. So if I turn it on, it will ask me to enter my password to access the ledger. And a, a hardware wallet is like a VPN thing. So what happens is, when you are using a hardware wallet, right? In order to approve any transaction, you actually have to approve the transaction on the hardware wallet, right? So it is not like, so even if I mean, a hacker is unable to perform any transactions on your behalf, as long as you have your hardware wallet with you, because you have to physically approve the transaction on your hardware wallet. Also, hardware wallets are still decentralized, so hardware wallets cannot be compromised unless you give your secret phrase to someone, or unless, you obviously give your hardware wallet access code to someone. Your hardware wallet can also be as simple as your seed phrase written on a piece of paper. Obviously, that is more technically challenging to work on, but a hardware wallet essentially is something that is not in a software format. It's as simple as that. You still have to go connect through a software in order to use the hardware wallet, but at the end of the day, all transactions have to be approved on a hardware wallet in order for you to be able to use the wallet. Okay, so that was like a really quick crash course on hardware wallet, but we can dive into more details later on. And I'm sorry, I stopped presenting. Let me present again. That is right. Yes, Gerda. It's like 2FA. It's like, yeah, it is like MFA, multi-factor authentication, right? Because you're first approving the transaction in your browser, then you have to log into your ledger, then you have to approve it on your ledger. And sometimes you also have multi-sig wallets, which means you need multiple signatories to approve the transaction. And this is great for like community wallets, right? Where you want, like, with, you must have seen in movies, right, that in US, to launch the nuclear missile, you need a couple of different people to turn their keys together. So it's something like that. That's what a multi-sig wallet is like. All right. So NFTs obviously have a huge popular use case right now in art, right? And as I've already spoken a lot about artwork, that hey, your NFT can be used to save art. Now, one of the things though is, I have seen a lot of artists creatively use NFTs to not just record their digital art, but also sell a physical copy of that artwork. So what they do is, you have an NFT, right? Like a picture of a painting that's minted as an NFT, but they will also ship the picture out to you, so you get the physical copy as well. So today people know about NFTs mostly in art, and one of the reasons why it has become popular with digital artists, and digital artists are not just those who are creating these digital illustrations or videos, they are also musicians, and artists who create any digital work of art. And audio is still a digital work of art. So what happens is, In the past, there was an interesting use case of an artist whose painting was purchased for $1,000 back in 1980s, I think. Now, this artist's painting was recently sold for over $1 million, and the artist was still alive when that painting was sold. However, the artist did not get any benefit from that. So whoever bought the painting and then sold it for $1 million, they made off 999 and $1,000, right? $999,000, but the artist did not get anything. So this is where the concept of royalties comes in. On a smart contract, there is a way for artists to define royalties, and typically artists define 10% royalties. And what this means is every time that NFT is resold, the artist gets 10% of that transaction. So in this particular case, had this particular painting been an NFT, right? Then when it was sold, the artist would make $100,000. For sure, the owner was making 900, still making like $899,000. But at the same time, the artist is still making, some profits on this sale. So the concept of royalties has been attractive to a lot of artists. Also, a lot of you might not know, but the music industry, as much as it might seem like, hey, it's so glamorous, most of the artists that are signed up with record companies, they have to pay 85% of their revenue to the record companies, and the artists don't really get paid a lot. So, and also, when a lot of the artists are in fact not even on television, right, but they have their music streaming on Spotify, and they get paid like pennies to a dollar for a million streams. So they don't make a lot of money. But when these artists sell their own records and albums on NFTs, and if they already have a customer base that can buy it from them, it's very easy for these people to create records on the blockchain, sell it to the customers without taking up without learning a lot of technical jargon, or becoming like a coder or developer themselves. They can easily do that, and now they get to keep 100% of the primary sales and a percentage of the secondary sales in perpetuity. So for artists, NFTs has really been like a godsend gift, because if they already have a customer base, now they can get rid of the intermediaries who generally tend to keep most of the money. Besides that, NFTs have some other use cases, and they are listed over here. So we spoke about music and art, and again, music and art, to me, it's like music is still art. um, Domain names. So you have a lot of Ethereum, like ENS is one service. You have Unstoppable Domains, and you have a couple of other domain websites that actually allow you to create a legit domain that you own forever. Then in the gaming industry, obviously a lot of the in-game assets, they are put up as NFTs. You have blogs on NFTs, and an example website is mirror.xyz. Then there is a protocol which is called proof of attendance, and probably for our next session we'll create a POAP, and we'll drop it to everyone who's attending. So that proof of attendance protocol allows you to just give, like, a celebratory or a memorable, like a memoir token to everyone who is attending a certain event. So these are some of the use cases of NFTs. And why are people so, Anushka, how much more time do we have? Because I see we're at 10.
We're at the top of the hour, so maybe you want to think of wrapping up somehow, which is absolutely exciting, and I'm loving being here. And then we can answer a few questions.
All right, that sounds great.
Do we still have long to go?
Oh yeah, we can well, actually, these are all like, the rest of it is like market volume and stuff, so we don't have to necessarily go through all of that.
Going
But I
to.
think I
Yeah.
can wrap up in like a couple of minutes.
Great. Thanks.
Sure. All right, so why are people purchasing art NFTs? A lot of the times it is to support the creators. If you don't already know, then artists actually get paid really, their compensation generally is very shitty. And most of the artists that even we know today, like even like a lot of the popular Italian artists as well, a lot of them actually died poor, and after their death, their painting suddenly got a lot of value. So obviously, you're empowering creators, you're empowering artists by purchasing the artwork directly from them. Also, if you like something, even if something is digital artwork, it doesn't mean that it has to be, um, it doesn't have any value. You can have some absolutely amazing pieces of digital artwork that have been created by spending as much time as somebody would spend on, like, you guys know, right? Like, we have in the past, people have paid millions of dollars for a picture that was clicked, right? So today, again, it's the same thing, but that picture can actually be on the blockchain. So somebody could pay $100 to purchase the picture, but if they try to flip it and sell it for $1 million, the artist will still get royalty on it. Whereas in real life, if somebody buys a picture for $1,000, flips it for $100,000, the artist doesn't really get anything from it. So yeah, so you just love artwork and you want to collect it. So you're a connoisseur of artwork, so you can collect it. Also, like I said, a lot of people even look at it as investment, just like diamonds by itself, right? People just invest money in diamonds and gold as investment. A lot of people also invest in NFTs, seeing that the value of NFTs could go up, especially if the project is doing great. So, for example, the Board Ape Yacht Club, when it was minted, they minted out like at about $500 at that time. And today they sit at a floor price, like the cheapest Board Ape you can get is 77 Ethereum, right? And that is still close to $100,000, and that's like within almost almost in a year of them minting, because they minted last year in May. So your NFTs could appreciate in value. And finally, NFTs act as membership access, or as access to some greater set of utilities. So that is why people have been looking at purchasing out NFTs. Also, a lot of people will use it as their profile pictures, just because it makes them look cool. And also, it signifies that they're part of this larger community. So you'll see a lot of folks flex their NFTs, their board apes on their profiles. So when we have our session next month or the month after on how to create NFTs, that time I will go through some of the how to stay safe in the NFT space part, right? But quickly, this just follows on the back of do your own research. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad players in the system as well. So you should never buy into the hype, as they say it. You should always research a project before you invest in those project in the project. It's just like investing in the stock market, literally. You want to make sure that the company you're investing in is worth your money. And I think with that, because the next slides are really about how do you launch an NFT, and that would be a great topic for our session that we will have. Yeah, I guess I would like to wrap it up with the future of NFTs. So I have discussed a couple of these use cases, but let's just talk about what the future holds for NFTs. Um, you can use NFTs in identity and supply chain. And on identity, Anushka can probably talk a lot more on identity than I can, right? But NFTs, tokens rather, can be used as a way to verify NFTs. And because NFTs today can be changed, can be sent from one wallet to another, a lot of people are moving to a different kind of token called soul-bound tokens to verify identity and accreditation. And soul-bound tokens, in a way, cannot be transferred out of your wallet, and they are generally used to hold information that is unique to a being. So, information like the certificates I hold, or information like my identity, is unique to me. So, even though in the past NFTs were discussed as a use case, now a lot of more people are looking at soul bound tokens for that same purpose. And that's simply because NFTs can actually be transferred in and out of wallets. NFTs can be used so in supply chain. Anushka, you have kind of done this, right, with the wine thing. So NFTs can actually be used that way, where an NFT, like in the physical world, a lot of the times people encode the NFT information in like an NFC chip, and then that chip, I know of luxury brands using these NFC chips encoded with the NFT information to provide proof of authenticity. So when you scan or when you tap your phone, it will actually lead you, take you to an NFT which has that digital proof of authenticity of the product that you own. So that's another interesting use case where they're using it to prove, like, as certificate of authenticity. But just remember that this certificate of authenticity actually cannot be forged, because again, remember, it has to come from that same contract, and somebody else might create a duplicate contract. But if you know what you're looking at, then you will know that, oh, this contract ID is not the contract ID of the original verifier. So a lot of luxury brands have actually been looking at it because nobody can mess with it. Um, Also, in the supply chain space, again, NFTs can be used to track everything from origin to sale, to point of sale. Then we spoke about digitals. So digital twins of existing objects, just the example that I took of Nike, where you can have digital sneakers, and then you also have real world sneakers that are the same. Um, Real estate twins is also an interesting use case, and how that translates into the NFT space is you have a physical space like your house, and you can maybe, like, create a 3D scan of the house, and you could upload it to a metaverse, for example. And generally the land in that metaverse, right, or the object, if you're I mean the object as a gallery on the metaverse, would most likely be an NFT. So real estate twins is also a use case for NFTs. So there's also use cases in law, though those are not actually very widely used. But in law, in patents as well, people are trying to use NFTs out there. But again, with patents, etc., as well, it's one thing to remember that just because you put up your patent as an NFT doesn't necessarily mean, obviously you are proven as the owner of it. However, if people go to the IP court of law and they are trying to fight over the intellectual properties, just having an NFT up there right now is not enough to save you, right? Because again, as I said, people could just, like, I might not have published my patent as an NFT, but just because somebody else goes and publishes the same artwork, the same patent as under their name as an NFT, doesn't really void my patent. NFTs are also being used in books, comics. You also have token gated access. So, token gating content through NFTs is also a very popular use case, which means you have to hold an NFT to get access to a certain content, right? So it's used even in education to token get content. It's used in entertainment industry, where if you hold an NFT, you will be able to get early access to a book, you could get early access to video streaming, and so on. And also, NFTs have a great use case in ticketing. And a lot of people actually like to save tickets. So, sometimes on eBay, you will go and see that somebody has a Metallica concert ticket from the 80s that they're auctioning off. And you have a lot of collectors who want that. NFTs are a great way in which, A, the ticket by itself is an NFT, obviously, because each ticket is unique. B, it serves, it could be tied into a proof of attendance, so that NFT can also be upgraded, and you can see that, okay, I had attended this concert. And third, if there are collectors looking to purchase it, they can actually, in future, if that concert something significant happened, or that was like a band that becomes as big as like Metallica, right? Somebody in the near future, like 20 years down the line, might want to buy it from you, and you get way more than your concert tickets, whatever your concert ticket was worth. So with that, we'll wrap up. And obviously, we I hope you guys and girls got to actually understand a few different things about NFTs. And I do understand that this could be a little overwhelming. Um, but we actually have a full session dedicated to how to create an NFTs, and we will be able to cover more ground there. So, any questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, if anyone on the line has questions, please raise your hands. I do have some questions that came in when people applied for the session. So we'll go through this list of questions, Sonia.
All right.
The first one is, who can own NFT?
So, anyone who has a wallet can own an NFT. And the reason why I'm saying that, just holding a wallet and not necessarily having cryptocurrency in it, is because an NFT can also be transferred to your wallet. So, Anushka, if you have a wallet and I want to gift you an NFT, I can do that, and that will not incur you any cost, which means you don't need to have a cryptocurrency. But because an NFT lives on the blockchain, right, you need to have a way to own it, and the only way to own it would be by you owning a wallet.
Thanks. I see Grace has a question in the chat saying, I have minted my NFTs that have not been sold since last year. What strategies could I use to push sales?
So again, your a lot of people now are actually focused on what are they getting when they're buying an NFT. So remember how I said that for musicians who already have a fan following, instead of going to a record company, they can go and publish their music as NFTs and directly get in front of their fans and followers. However, in this case, they already have an audience. So depending on what is it that you're trying to sell, if you're just trying to sell your artwork, then you have to let people know what you're selling. And generally, we call artists who create digital artwork as one-of-one artists. And generally, you will see these artists in a lot of Twitter spaces going and telling their stories. Now, your artwork could get discovered. The question is that how will someone discover? Like, as of today, you have millions of NFTs. In those millions of NFTs, how will someone go and find your artwork? So you have to go to these spaces, and you have a lot of Twitter spaces. They're normally known as shill spaces. So you can go and talk about your project, talk about what you're working on. You also have communities like Randy Zuckerberg. She has the hug.xyz, or you have World of Women project, and you have a few of these communities which support one-of-one artists and bring them in, like they basically put their artwork in front of their communities. So you can also look at getting in touch with communities like this who will help you get in front of more people. But again, remember that at the end of the day, the way someone will discover your NFT is if you have marketed it. And now you might not have a budget for marketing, but what you could do is use your time to get in front of these people, these collectors, and then share your project with them. And most importantly, share the story with them. Because a lot of the times, for the digital art that is created, people buy into the story, people buy into you as an artist, they love what you are doing, and a lot of the times, sometimes people will still just buy artwork. Like if you go to De- Devian, I don't, well, just Devian, and I don't know how it's pronounced, but if you go to Devian Art, there are people who are just purchasing these elaborate digital artworks, and multiple people can buy it. But again, Divine Art is a platform where it can easily be discovered. Whereas in the NFT space, on the marketplace, you have millions of NFTs. So getting discovered is a challenge, which is why you have to go and put yourselves out there. Go on these spaces, join different communities. And NFT community is a big thing in NFTs, right? So if you find like you're a misfit and you don't have the kind of people that you're looking to be with supporting you, then you go and create your own community. But it is important that you are able to get in front of people who are potentially going to buy your artwork. Because if you think that but just by going and deploying on a marketplace, people will discover it, that very, very, very rarely happens.
Wow, that's a super helpful response. Thanks, Sonia.
So, on which
What?
blockchain?
I was just asking Grace on which blockchain did she mint her NFT collection? The next question we have is, why would one want to own NFTs instead of real objects or properties?
Owning an NFT doesn't necessarily mean that you own just digital properties, right? At least, and I know that this question came in before the session, but as we saw right now, NFTs can actually be tagged to physical assets. So, for example, there is this guy in LA called Craig Shelley, and he has this luxury high-end watches that go for like even like 20,000 a piece, and he makes them in Switzerland. So his watches, they come with an NFC chip, and when you scan it, it takes you to the associated NFT that's actually worth. I mean, that serves as the proof of authenticity. So that's one thing that we need to realize, that NFT by itself is not just digital art. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, NFTs, so in the Xbox ecosystem, they are using NFTs to manage royalties, to manage even subscriptions. And the interesting thing out there though is the NFTs within the Xbox ecosystem just stay within the Xbox ecosystem. That's why we don't know about it. But NFTs have so much more purpose than just being digital art. That being said, obviously, even on websites like Divine Art and stuff, you have people who like to purchase digital art. So people can still go and buy them. So it's not really a question of, why would you, I mean, would I buy my food as an NFT? No. I mean, well, as my food as a digital piece of something. No, I'm not going to be able to feed myself by looking at a beautifully plated picture of a dish, right? I need to feed myself the physical food. So yes, so there's that to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think your talk also helped people understand the link between an NFT and a physical object. So I think the talk will definitely explain further. Thank you so much. The next question is, I am interested in learning more about whether there are ethical concerns linked to NFTs. Uh,
Ethical
yeah.
concerns well, I mean, obviously there have been environmental concerns because a lot of the NFTs are on Ethereum, and Ethereum recently moved to proof of stake. uh, like Cardano was always proof of stake, right? And there was a reason why that was the case, because it takes up a lot of electricity. And the day Ethereum moved from proof of work to proof of stake, which was on 15 September, 24 hours after that, the global energy consumption went down by 0.2%. Global energy consumption, right? So that was the environmental footprint. So when you talk about ethical, obviously, environmental constraints, concerns are something that come to mind. But we also use a lot of electricity when we're watching Netflix, right? So we have to move to an era where energy itself can be renewable. In terms of ethical concerns, I would say if you are going to go out there and from day one, your plan is to rug people, which means you are just there to deploy your NFTs and take money and go away, and not, and maybe you promise your consumers, like you have had a lot of projects, NFT projects, that have said that, hey, you buy our NFT and then a month later we will give you all merchandise. But then once the NFT is minted, they take all the money and just disappear in thin air. That has happened, which is why, again, to combat these things, you have platforms that KYC the creators. Typically in the blockchain world, like even the founder of Bitcoin, nobody knows who Satoshi is, right? So anonymity had been a big thing in Bitcoin, and doxing was, sorry, in blockchain, and doxing was actually a bad thing. Doxing is when your real world identity gets known. But in the NFT space, doxing actually is being used as a positive term. So when people say that we are doxed in the NFT space, it means that people know who we are, and they are actually putting their credibility online. So ethical concerns would obviously again then be around, maybe you already know, like if I tell you guys that, hey, buy my NFT for $10 and you will get to take a space shuttle to moon, and I know that's never going to happen. Obviously I'm shutting you all, right? And I'm trying to sell you something that I cannot, I'm making you a promise that I know I cannot keep. So ethically, I would say that would be another concern.
Okay, our next question is, how can NFTs be used to improve quality of service in the supply chain industry?
There are a couple of different ways, and I think we spoke about it actually, when I spoke about the supply chain use case. Obviously, proof of authenticity is one, right? But at the same time, by the way, not all blockchains are gas guzzlers. You have blockchains that also are carbon neutral, and then you have blockchains like Celo that are even carbon negative. So what they do is they are already carbon neutral, but they also go and purchase blocks of carbon from the market to offset the carbon footprint. So you also have blockchains that are carbon negative. So now that being said, because in NFT, as I said, it's a unique identifier, right? So you can use that unique identifier to trace the NFT right from origin to point of sale and even beyond. You can also track resales, using that NFT. So that is how NFTs could be used in the supply chain industry. And again, besides the tracking, it also serves as a great way uh, to check your authenticity. I know of a couple of chains like plastics, etc., where you could use that. There are systems integrated into your supply chain workflow that not only allows you to track the origin, manufacturing, sales of NFT, but it also allows you to track the carbon footprint in that process, and that gets associated with the NFT at different phases. So these are a couple of ways in which you can use the NFTs in SCM.
Fantastic. Um, how can you use NFTs for fractional ownership of property?
This actually has been emerging as a great use case, fractional ownership through NFTs. So one of the ways in which it can be done, and at the moment you have to get through some red tape. One of the ways in which it could be done is being able to own fractional shares in or getting fractional ownership in a commercial property, for example. So that's like one big use case of fractional ownership that has been coming up, because earlier commercial ownership was not really accessible to the regular crowd, for the simple reason that you need obviously access to a lot of capital to invest in commercial properties. But with NFTs, people have been fractionalizing the ownership. So if you have a property that's like 1,000 square feet, you could each own like 1 square foot in that particular property, right? And it is tracked on the chain. Now, the reason why I said there is red taping, it's because some of the I think there are a couple of cities around the world where the cities recognize something like this that is implemented on the chain. But in a lot of parts of the world today, if you pull off something like this, you still have to, in real life, get all the paperwork done. And even when you're reselling that fractional ownership, there is more paperwork to be done. So it in those cases right now, the NFTs or the fractional ownership through NFTs, that serves as a proof of record than an actual ownership. um, I mean, you can't just go and sell your fractional ownership and then collect money on it, because at the back end, you still need to have the paperwork done. However, it's still an emerging market. Just remember, like, the NFTs ERC 721, I think it was the paper itself was written in 2015 or 2017. I think it was 2017. So, it's just been around for like 4 or 5 years now. Yeah, I think it was 2017, because yesterday was International NFT Day, and we were celebrating like the fifth year, so 5 years now. So yes, so your NFTs essentially, again, um, they will allow you to get fractional ownership, but the use cases are still evolving. And real world use cases that I've already seen companies trying out are these. Like, I already know companies that are working on fractional ownership of commercial real estate.
Fantastic. I've also come across a company that's doing fractional ownership of property in South Africa, and they've got about 9 nodes and their own, blockchain set up. I've put a link in the chat, but I'm not sure whether it's the same company. Um, I will find out what the link is, and we can post it on Girls in Tech South Africa as well. And the next question is, are NFTs sustainable in South Africa regarding the South African audience?
NFTs are, I mean, what do we mean by sustainability? That is the first thing that we have to think in this particular aspect. They live on the blockchain, so as long as the blockchain lives, they're going to stay, right? But the question is, are there use cases supporting the use of these NFTs? And I would say absolutely. E-commerce is everywhere, commerce is everywhere, and we already spoke about these use cases of how NFTs could serve as proof of authenticity, right? They could also be used to create digital twins. And whether we like it or not, I think it is fair to say that metaverse, right? Not just because Facebook renamed itself to Meta, But also, like, even in COVID, right, the only reason why a lot of us were able to sustain through COVID is because we could work from home, and a lot of our work was being done on the computers. So yes, we are spending more and more time in front of the computers, and I'm fairly certain that 2 generations from now, a lot of the kids would also be studying in the metaverse and going to school in the metaverse, and they'd want to look cool in the metaverse. So they'd have a lot of different outfits and whatnot, right, in the metaverse. So they're, I mean, there might be a kid who wants to go to a school as a dragon, right, and they want a dragon skin. So there are a lot of use cases, and in fact, these use cases are not just specific to South Africa. There are common use cases around the globe. But also remember when I gave this example of property fraud and NFTs being a great way to combat that fraud. That can definitely be a great use case that helps combat fraud in real life, because the transactions. So anywhere you have to go and showcase proof of ownership, NFT can have a great use case there, because it's an immutable proof of ownership, that it lives on the blockchain, that can be used to authenticate the owner. So it has a lot of use cases.
Yeah, I see there's another similar question that says, is there a demand for in real life immersive NFT exhibitions in South Africa? Um, I don't know if you have any stats around that.
Well, the NFT market itself, like, even though the spec has been around for a couple of years, the market really emerged, and it started making headlines last year. So we don't exactly have a lot of stats, but what I can tell you is, in terms of in the US, where there are immersive galleries, even though they call it immersive, most of the times what has happened is, a lot of those galleries just have picture frames with NFTs in there, and people haven't necessarily felt like that is immersive enough, right? Because it's just like, just a frame with a picture in it. But we have other galleries being created, like in Vegas itself, where the 3D NFTs would actually have real life 3D objects. So it's not the same as just looking at an NFT in a frame, but you actually see like a 3D rendition of that. And then also a lot of the frames that are there, they have 3D depth. So you're able to really, I mean, it's not the same as just putting that NFT on your TV and looking at it, right? So people are creating these creative digital immersive experiences where, even their gallery setup reflects. So you could browse their gallery in real life, and they would also have the gallery equivalent in the metaverse. And the walkways in those galleries also have these immersive setups, so it does feel like you're getting transported out of the boring, mundane white wall galleries into something that's just as fun and exciting as what you would see in a metaverse. So again, I feel like exhibitions that just sell themselves as immersive but have a TV literally with an NFT on it aren't the ones that are making waves. The ones that are really making waves are ones that transcend that experience into something that makes you feel like you have been transported over to a metaverse. And those are the galleries that are doing much better.
That's very interesting. Totally fascinating. I know that in South Africa on the 30th of September 2022, we have Crypto Fest, which is a one-day conference. Put the link in the chat so that you can maybe check it out and see if it's something that may interest you. I do see that they are covering NFTs in that conference, so it might be a good idea to pop by and see what's going on. I see that we have a question here, step-by-step guide on launching an NFT project in Cardano blockchain. It's not my question.
We should probably get Ali or Shannon, right, to really even help present that. But the guide,
Yeah.
in most of the cases, it's similar. You have to first go and deploy your contract. You need to have some cryptocurrency to deploy the contract, because you need to pay for the gas fees. And then you can go and provide a way for people to mint off that contract, which today on the Cardano chain, you can do it on the marketplace like JPEG Store, or you could have a website that people can go and mint from. So the process is more or less the same on different chains.
Yeah. Okay. I think what we will do is we might get Ali or Shannon to record something that we can share with the team once you're done with your NFT workshop for us in November or December. I think that
Yep.
would be amazing. So this has a few questions in it. How much capital and what skills does one need to start one's NFT collection?
All right, that's a loaded question. This is what I'll say, right? If you, in terms of capital investment, it can be as much as you want, to be honest, right? Or it could be, um, it could just be like even a few, like tens of dollars, depending on whether you are the artist, what you're creating. Again, a lot of the times, especially given the current market situation, right? A lot of people, like when it was a bull run, people were buying NFTs because everything was selling like hotcakes. So people would buy an NFT and they'd just go and flip it. But now what is happening is people are really looking at, hey, am I getting any value out of the NFT? So if you are able to convince people that what you're creating has value associated with it, then you will have people buying into that NFT, for example. So one of the examples I could share is NFTs being used for social good, right? So you have a lot of nonprofit organizations, for example, launch their NFT collections as a way to get access to the crowd that's active in, you have a lot of Gen Zers and millennials who are buying and selling NFTs. So in order to connect with audiences that are there, and what these NFTs, if you purchase an NFT, then the money raised from that, or a percentage of the money raised from that, could go to support a mission, right? So that's just an example. I mean, even though it is a utility that I am not directly using, but it's something that allows me to, I mean, it's something that I'm doing for social good. So for me, it is still something useful. And the other thing is, if this particular company manages all their transactions on blockchain, which today it's a little hard, but in near future, cryptocurrencies are going to become mainstream, right? And you will actually be able to buy and sell your groceries in cryptocurrency. So when that happens, when nonprofits are raising money in this fashion, you'll be able to see the flow of money in full transparency, right? Because if you're donating that money for a school kid to get a backpack or something like that, right? You will actually be able to see that transaction on the chain and see that the money was really used for the purpose that it was presented to be used for. So at the end of the day, like at least right now in this current market, a lot of people are buying NFTs because they find it useful in some way. But again, if you're a one of one artist and you have a story to tell, you still have a lot of collectors who buy the NFTs because they like you. But most of the larger projects, like the 10K drops, which are typically like 10,000 NFTs, people are looking for utility. They're looking at the community. If that membership, if they like the people in the community, then they know that together they can build something. And that's why they would support a project. So yes, so in terms of capital, obviously for marketing you can use some capital. But again, if you already are an influencer like Gary Vee, who is a big influencer, he didn't necessarily have to spend marketing dollars because all he had to do was go on his YouTube and say, hey, I'm launching an NFT, and people bought it.
Okay, so the ability to create your NFT collection depends on your artistic skill because you may need to pay people to help you or you could do it yourself. And then the launching fee depends on which blockchain you're launching it. It could be a high fee or a low fee. And then in
Yes,
terms
there
of the
are there
marketing,
there are actually some platforms these days that allow you to create your own NFT collection as well. So you don't really need a lot of artwork. They provide you with some existing artwork sets, and you could use that to mix and match and create a collection. But again, a lot of the times people know that it's coming from there. So if you're just trying to take something from there and put it on the blockchain and try to sell it, people are not going to buy it, right? Because a lot of the times people know that it's coming from there. But what they will buy into is if that is just a fun way to update your PFP to show you're part of the community. But then at the back end, that community is really doing something. You're aligned in your mission. You're trying to maybe even the community is focused around around hosting a lot of parties, right? Actually, when the Bored Ape Yacht Club started, that was literally their pitch. Hey, we are going to ape in, right? We're going to party on the yacht. So that is why it was called Bored Ape Yacht Club. But now they have done more than just partying on the yacht. So you need to have a story to sell, something that people will buy into, besides just saying that, oh, I created this generative art that took me an hour, and now, it's for something that took you an hour, or even like a day, or maybe even a week, you want to suddenly go and sell it and get a couple of $1 million. This could have still happened at the peak of NFT, but no longer is that the case.
Okay. The third question is, what specific things must be considered for NFTs to be used in the metaverse?
Obviously, the metaverse compatibility is the first thing, right? So, um, this is an interesting use case because, quite often with our friends, we discuss this. Right now, metaverses are not interoperable. Other side, which is a metaverse launched by Bored Ape Yacht Club, they're actually working with the company M2 based in UK, and these guys are creating some metaverse standards. And I have seen another company out here in the Bay Area as well that's creating metaverse standards. So I'm pretty sure there are other companies also that are trying to create metaverse standards, but we don't have any one company emerge as winner. Maybe M2 might be the one, since other side already has 100,000 metaverse parcels, so they could be the leaders in that. So metaverse interoperability is a concern at the moment, because here's the thing: like Decentraland and Sandbox, they are two of the biggest metaverses that are on the blockchain, and all the assets as well as the land on the metaverse, these are all NFTs. However, if Decentraland or Sandbox decided to shut down their servers, then the question is, what will you do with those NFTs? Because there is no platform for you to use them on, right? So on the blockchain, even though there is a record, you can't really do much with it. So metaverse interoperability, I feel, will give NFTs the characteristic of true ownership, because even if one metaverse platform that you are looking at shuts down, you can still take that NFT to another metaverse platform and use it there.
Yeah.
So as of today, though, if you are trying to create NFTs on certain metaverses, Decentraland has its own editor and its own set of APIs and SDKs. You have to use that to create NFTs within the Decentraland ecosystem and sell it on their marketplace. The same goes for Sandbox as well. You have to create NFTs that you can sell within the Sandbox ecosystem. There are many other smaller metaverses coming up which allow you to import your NFTs, import your avatars. Those metaverses are already trying to be interoperable, even though they don't all follow the same standards. But I feel like 10 years from now, you will really be able to take your avatar, take your NFTs from one metaverse to the other, and they will all exhibit the same behavior. So that is when
Fantastic.
when NFTs in the metaverse and gaming space would really be more valuable.
It's such a fascinating world at the moment. Two more questions. How does one convert an NFT into monetary value in the physical world?
It's well, there are a couple of different ways to address those questions, right? The first one obviously being, um, you buy an NFT cheap, and then there's a lot of hype and marketing that goes around it, and you're able to sell that NFT at a big profit. So you are making money that way. A lot of the collectors, by the way, guys, they actually buy NFTs in tuples, in sets of three. And the way it normally works is, they will obviously, a lot of the times in the NFT market, you will see this trend of pump, and then there's a dump. So people who are trying to make profit. So you'll, after a sale, especially if it's a well-known project, you will see the floor price rise, and then you see it go down. But depending on how good the project is, it could go down and then gradually start going up, like in the case of Bored Ape. Or once it goes down, it would probably just stay down, okay, depending on how the project is doing. So what a lot of people will do is they'll buy in sets of three. So one of the first NFT, they'll try to flip it as soon as they're able to make profit. So that way, they by flipping just one NFT, they're able to recover the costs of the three NFTs, right? The second NFT, many a times you have something new coming up. So, for example, Proof Collective, they have Moonbird oddities and Moonbirds, and they're going to be launching a new collection, Mythics, in Jan. And what you'll be able to do is burn one of your oddities, which means transfer it to a dead wallet, so your NFT cannot then further be used by anyone. So you can burn that NFT in order to get a mythical NFT. So they keep one in case they have to burn. And if there is no burning, they can see in future if the floor further goes up, they could flip it at a big profit. And obviously, the third NFT, they tend to keep it because that still gives them access to the ecosystem, right? They are able to stay in the server, they're able to be a part of the community as long as they have at least one NFT. So many collectors will buy NFTs in sets of three. Oh, so
Okay.
so yes,
Wow.
how do you make money, like real in real life? So obviously one is by flipping and making money, but the other is you could actually use NFTs to curate experiences. So as I said, like you have your event tickets that are being sold as NFTs, and because you have an NFT associated with it, you could actually have a slightly higher value for the ticket, right? Because people also get the digital memorial to go to carry with them. Um, a lot of people are using NFTs for also curated experiences. Like there is a restaurant that is using NFTs for dining, right? And then your dining experience. So you need to own that NFT in order to be able to dine at the restaurant. So many
Okay.
membership clubs are using NFTs that way, right? But at the end of the day, you have to create a whole experience. It's not just going and launching a membership club as an NFT that's going to get you that market. You have to create a market around it.
Okay, and then I guess once you flip your NFT or make some kind of crypto, then you've got to probably, if you want to use that money in the real world, you probably have to get that crypto into a wallet and then be able to take it into an exchange and convert it into fiat, right?
Yeah, so your crypto will be in a wallet, right? Whenever you're buying and selling an NFT. But you're right, you have to get it off the ramp. So you have to go to a centralized exchange, change it into fiat, and then use it. Though I must say that increasingly you're seeing even countries adopt cryptocurrency, like El Salvador. Bitcoin is actually their national currency. And a lot of the countries where hyperinflation is a problem, using cryptocurrency is actually a much, I mean, cryptocurrency's volatility is actually lower than the volatility and inflation in their countries, right? So cryptocurrency could really be a great alternative, and a great option to handle to combat hyperinflation. So El Salvador, you can use Bitcoin, at all the stores and everything. Um, Still, many people prefer using US dollars because, again, of the volatility. But until you get to a point where you can do that, it's a little bit of a challenge. Now, what I have seen mostly happen, and again, this is not necessarily NFT but cryptocurrency, is especially since the bear market, more and more people have purchased stable coins like USDC, USDT. So a stable coin is a cryptocurrency that tries to maintain its value or peg its value to a fiat currency, and mostly that fiat currency is dollar. So USDC, the value of USDC is always $1, but it is still a cryptocurrency. And the way they maintain their pegs are different. So I'm not going to go into a whole session on stable coins, but you guys can go and look at stable coins to see how that is used. And I have seen more and more people actually use stable coins to pay overseas employees, right? To pay vendors overseas, because those transactions happen within a minute and the fees are much lesser than wire transfers and everything. So I've seen a lot more people do that. In fact, even in the last month, in USDC, if you look at the buy and sell ratio on for stable coins like USDC, it's 96 to 98% buy versus just 1 to 2% sell, which means that people are buying USDC and keeping it, right? And then they are able to still use it, especially for these overseas transactions. Has seen a lot of use with yeah, a lot of use cases with stablecoins.
Okay, last question. How can NFTs benefit us? And I think you've answered that. And what are the tax implications? Is it the same as stock returns?
Um, in US, your NFTs are being treated as assets, so you can have capital gain. In fact, even cryptocurrency is treated as such, right? Uh, Stocks are generally treated as securities. In US, they did say that cryptocurrencies are not security. When you are creating your NFT project, that is one thing that you have to be very careful about. Because if you tell people that, hey, by owning an NFT, you will own something, you're promising return of investment, which means you technically are selling a security. And NFTs are supposed to just be utility tokens at most, right? Or they're just not supposed to have any return of investment kind of value. So, if you take a painting and you sell a painting for a profit, the painting doesn't become a security. But the moment you sell painting saying that, hey, you buy it for $100 and you'll be able to, like, we will pay you, you'll be able to hold that painting and you'll get paid for holding that painting. So the moment you start offering a return on investment, it becomes a gray area. And even though right now you might not have the Fed coming behind you, in near future that could happen, right? Because even in US, like, the federal government has been now cracking down hard on scams, etc., because of all the money that people have lost. So, tax implications. Unfortunately, I don't know about South Africa, but I think it should be more or less the same as cryptocurrency tax implications. But in US cryptocurrency, they're again, they're looked at as assets, and so capital gain as well as capital loss is applicable to cryptocurrency and NFTs in US. Whereas in India, it's really weird because in India, cryptocurrency is actually taxed at a flat 30% rate at the point of purchase and transaction values and stuff. However, you're not able to write off a loss, so you're not able to claim any capital loss in India. So it right now it changes from country to country. Some countries don't have any regulations at all, so you're not paying any taxes. Oh, and then you have countries like Switzerland, where you have some capitals like Lego, where most of the blockchain companies are actually registered, and there you just pay like 4 or 6% tax. So a tax heaven for everyone in crypto.
So variation in terms of how this is taxed around the world. I know our South African government will be introducing some legislation at some point in time regarding taxes, and I think it currently depends on how long you're holding the cryptocurrency. If it's a long hold, then it might be seen as capital gains, and if it's I don't know, I think if it's you getting paid in it, then it might be treated as income tax. So I don't know. We'll see how the space evolves.